Hello, in this video we're gonna learn about connecting a website with a server to our TouchDesigner. So that is at this moment in two ways. So we have our slider here and we have our slider here, and they both connect to each other. So now we can disconnect, connect, we can send messages over, um, and we can here see that our value changed as well. So what do we need for that? First thing is that we need a GitHub. So I have posted the code on GitHub. This is a client and a server. We can use both. You can just clone them here. So I will link this in the description. What we need to do if we clone it, I will do it now actually. Then we can, I'll just clone it in downloads for now. I will start over. So I'm in the terminal, I do git clone. I'm assuming you already worked with Git. If not, there's some lovely tutorials out there for you to try. And then we will cd in that folder and open that in Visual Studio Code. So now we have a server and a client, and we have our terminal. We can open that up, and I will cd change directory into the server and do an npm install, and then we can do npm run dev, and we can, so we actually don't need that, but we can open with a live server, and then we see our web client. At this moment we can connect. I don't know why this is not working yet, but I will update that soon. And then we can change this slider around, and normally in our TouchDesigner we will see that the slider also changes. So first we're gonna start by looking at actually the web server and the web client code, because there's some interesting things going on there. So we have a WebSocket server, and we will actually install some things. So we have some dependencies here, and I assume you already know some nodes. So I did npm run dev, but we can also say npm start, and then we can say, okay, we have a dot environment. This is for our environment variables, but the thing is, like, by default it's already set up. And then we have our express, so that's for our server. Node OSC, which is a package to send open sound control messages, no daemon. So if the difference between node and no daemon is that no daemon is will refresh if something changes changes in the code, socket.io, and WebSocket. So then we say, okay, we have required.environment config. So our environment variables at this moment, they are not loaded in. And then HTTP server. So then we started an HTTP server, which is actually, here we have first Express that we load in. With Express we can say, we can actually make a web server, HTTP, WebSocket and OSC, and then we create a web server. And we have a static folder as well. So that's for later, because we can broadcast as well. And then what we use right now is our WebSocket. So here we say, okay, we have a server, we open it on port 5001, and we can send an OSC message. And then here on a message, income message, we check if the message is pong, then we just say keep alive pong received. In any other case, we try to map that message and we send that to TouchDesigner. And then on close, we say we have closed that connection. Then we have a broadcast function that's to send a message to all the clients. And then we have a start keep alive every 5000, so every 50 seconds we send a ping. Every 5 seconds. No, 50 seconds. And then in our, so we have a bunch of HTML, bunch of JavaScript, but the real deal is happening in the main.js. So we start a new WebSocket. We say if it's open, we say connected to the WebSocket server, and normally here it should say that we change the connection state input to connected, and then we say the connect button is disabled and disconnect button is enabled. If we receive a message, then we try to enter is data in the event, then we try to parse the data, so we try to get some data out of it. And then if the data has a slider, so if the data consists of a key slider 1 and the data in that slider 1 is of the type number, then we can change the slider 1 value, so that's the slider on the page with the data from the input, from the message. And then on close we also have a disconnect, and then we also send a message if we change the value of the slider. And if we send a button, we can send messages as well. So if we in the site, if we send messages, that could be the we could just send JSON messages. So for this, we want to start over, and in TouchDesigner, we will search for a WebSocket dot, and we actually right now we are just on a local host, so we want to connect with the local host. So we as for WebSocket, and we have our address is localhost and our port is 5001, because we set that port in Visual Studio Code. And then we can already try if that works. So right click on this and we open a client with the live server. And normally if we change the slider around, whoop, you let's check. I'll just check if we can start again. I think something did not work. We have client size 1. Yeah, actually we need to connect here. So now we can see that this message comes in. Okay, so what can we actually do with this? There's plenty of things that we can do. First thing is we're gonna put this message into a text. So you can search for a text dot. And then here we have a bunch of callbacks. And on this, in this case, we're gonna work with on received text. So normally you have on received text right here. And now what we want to do is we want to set the operator text 1, and we want to set the text of that operator to the message we get. And so let's try again. And actually we see here that this is working. So what we can do right now is actually we can get that because we wrote our data into a JSON formatting, and a JSON format is JavaScript objects object notation. And so it's a way of like structuring your data. So it's always with these curly brackets, and then we have quotes, so the key, and then we have the value. So in this case, we have the key of slider 1 and the value of 67. And right now we also see that we had a ping message coming through and an error because that's actually not a valid JSON, but we will take care of it later. Because now we want to send a message again. And then we get this, and then we can say, okay, we want the output format to be a table. And actually right now we can have a dot to a chop. But now we need to adjust this so it actually makes sense. So channel per column. And then we have first row is names, okay, and second row is values. Like so. As you know, again, we have this ping message coming in, so we need to take care of that. So we will actually go into the code once more. And we will say if the message is ping, we will just send a pong back, and that's way of keeping the message alive over like the message stream. So if message is ping, we will say dot send text. So that's actually one of the callbacks that we get off the WebSocket dot, and we will say we want a pong, and then we will return out of this function, so we don't get an error anymore. And actually, if we go and search for the help function, and I will actually reset this again. And we have an error here. Oops. Yeah, of course, this should be 2 equal signs. So in this WebSocket that we have some callbacks. And okay, so right now we can see that this is working. We can also send our data to a table, and I will just copy and paste this code in. It's quite long. Okay, so actually right now we are making it so we can send everything to a table. Let me check the live server. And normally that should, if I connect again, that should go to the table. And I made some mistake. Ah. So what we want to do is actually convert this message that's incoming to a JSON, to proper JSON, so we can work with it. And therefore we need to have the library to work with JSON, so we can just say import JSON, and then down here we can say data is JSON load, so that converts the data from the message to proper JSON. And then we can say, okay, we want the table, operator table 1, so this one. And for every key value pair in data items, so this is also a way of getting all the items of the data. If the row exists, is at this moment is false, so we check if the row exists, so if already a row with that key exists, and if that exists, overwrite the current value, overwrite the value with the current value. If that doesn't exist, we can just append the row. So let's try again. And so now we see that we have slider 1, but actually in this we can say we have a slider 2 with the value of 35, and then we see that we have a another slider, and then we can have two values incoming. So that's already cool, but we can also have the other way around. So for that purpose, we're gonna input the slider, a null chop next to it, and then a chop execute. Because here, if we change this value, we want to send that value to our server, and we can do that by that chop execute, and on the value change, and then we can go in for with import again of our JSON library, and then we can go down here, say okay, we want the WebSocket, and I will actually store that WebSocket somewhere. So WebSocket is the operator with the name WebSocket. I think that is WebSocket1, and then we can use the operation for that dot, and that send text, and we want to have a message. And what is our message at this moment? We want to say okay, we will convert a message or like a chop uh, in here in TouchDesigner to a JSON, and this has a key of slider1 and a value of our value times 100, because actually our value here is in between 0 and 1, so we want to have a value that's in between 0 and 100, and actually we want to have that as an int for now. And we can say okay, so now we can send that message. See if that works. Okay, so that could actually work. Let's see if we get something in our server. So actually, if I change it here, it changes here as well. So all is well. Just let me check if I have somewhere. Yeah, so we still get this unexpected character, and actually that we need to check for the ping message, but right now it's not a problem because everything still works. But if you want to fix it, we can go in here and say okay, if event data return, or if event print data sprung, then we can say we have a server pong happening. So let's see if that works. And I will wait for a little bit. Now it's connected. I think that should be thing actually. We can just log the received data. And so with the server that you get from GitHub, you can do all kinds of things. We can also have OSC. We can have WebRTC, so we can stream video if we want. But right now, it's in this tutorial we focus on just the connection with the WebSockets. Okay, so I forgot to connect once again. Maybe I could do in the future that this connects automatically. But if you want to, you can check everything out in these files. So it's kind of written. So if we actually close this and we connect again here, we connect in TouchDesigner, so it will still work because at this moment we don't use OSC. Okay, so we got our first pong, and we see received message ping. So we could actually send a message here. But it's not necessary. So that was it for this video. Hope you can try some things out on your own and have a little network going on with HTTP and TouchDesigner, well, with the website and TouchDesigner connection. What we can also do is actually host this on another site, or like host this online so we can connect to that server instead of like our local host. Thank you for watching, and until next time.